Asalamualaikum all, welcome back to my channel. I pray that you are all in the best of health and iman. If you are new, welcome. My name is Nafisa. I am a Muslimah life coach and I support Muslim women with relationship and mental health issues. So if you're interested in being coached in those areas, you can find me over on my website, which I will leave linked in the description box down below. But over here on YouTube, I make Islamic lifestyle as well as dawah content. So if you're interested in that, then definitely make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, today's video is going to be on the topic of marriage once again, and we are speaking about premarital counselling and why I think it will be very beneficial for every single Muslim who is looking to get married to at least discuss some of the topic areas that I'm going to share with you guys in this video. If not, then find yourself a great Muslim marriage counselor who can support you through premarital counseling, because guys, I'm telling you, it will change the game when it comes to seeking a spouse, and inshallah will help you to make better decisions on who is most compatible for you. So without any further ado guys, let's jump straight into the video. Bismillah. Premarital counselling is a type of therapy that is offered to couples who are thinking to get married to help them to identify compatibility and help them prepare for married life together. Ultimately, the goal for attending premarital counselling before you get married is so that you can develop a strong bond and a strong marriage, so that you can have a healthier marriage and also ultimately reduce the rates of possible divorce. Sadly, nowadays, I think the rate at the moment is going about 50% of all marriages ending in divorce, which is really sad. And ultimately, our intentions and our goals going into marriage should be that we want it to last forever, inshallah, if it is best for us. And so premarital counseling is just one of those things that Muslims can involve themselves into before they get married for the reasons that I have identified. So why premarital counseling? Well, in my observation as a relationship coach and just life in general, it's something that I've realized that Muslims are hardly ever engaging in. Yes, we have our guidelines that our religion gives us, and that is complete, alhamdulillah. However, there is a missing piece that you and I are not taking into consideration, and that is compatibility. With the list of things that I'm going to mention next, you'll be able to see whether you are compatible with the person that you're hoping to marry or not. Because where you are not compatible is where you're going to have clashes, and those clashes sometimes become overwhelming, and that's what can lead to divorce. When it comes to premarital counseling, I would advise Muslims to try to look for a Muslim marriage counselor. I'm not trying to be biased, but the reason why I'm saying look for a Muslim marriage counselor if you are a Muslim is because they're going to understand marriage from an Islamic perspective. So they will be better able to guide you as to how to make your marriage successful in terms of what the deen says and within the boundaries of Islam. Likewise, I will also say if you are someone from a different faith, look for someone who gives marital counseling within your faith as well, because faith is something that sometimes people overlook, but it is very, very big. On that topic of faith, one of the first things that you might discuss in premarital counseling is any differences or similarities in faith between the two people who are planning to get married. Reason why this is important is because if you have clashes in your beliefs, you might have clashes in your lifestyles. For example, us as Muslims, some people, put themselves into certain sects, and within those sects, there are certain acts and certain things that they engage in. For example, personally, if I would have to put myself in a sect, I identify most with the Sunni sect. So if I am to go ahead and marry someone who comes from a different sect and a different way of understanding the religion of Islam, are we going to clash in our understanding? Do we have an understanding of, okay, this is how I'm going to worship Allah, And am I okay with you worshipping Allah in a different kind of way within the same household? If that's the case, how then are we going to raise our children? Because they are going to come from the both of us. And so that discussion needs to be had. And so that is why the discussion of similarities and differences between faith is very important. In some countries, I know that people of two different faiths do get married and they come together. And again, it's something that needs to be discussed. Do you respect my way of worshipping God or whoever I believe in? Do I respect your way of doing it? Are we willing to happily coexist? Are you going to move over to what I believe? Is that what my expectation is? Or is the other spouse going to move on to the other side? If so, how is that going to work? And then how are we going to raise the children that will come from us? And sometimes it's not an issue of having different faiths. Sometimes it's being on different levels, like completely different levels. For example, personally, I can never marry a man who has an issue with me wearing hijab, even if he is a Muslim, because there are some Muslim men who prefer their wives not to wear hijab. That kind of person is just not going to gel very well with me because I'm just not going to compromise on issues of my hijab. Do you understand? So I need a man whose level of faith is at a certain point where at least it matches mine or is quite close to where mine is, so that we don't clash all the time. Because if I go ahead and marry a Muslim man who has an issue with me wearing hijab and he's actually expecting me to remove hijab after marriage and then I refuse to remove hijab, there is where the clashes will begin to happen. So it is very important to identify any similarities and differences between your faiths or your levels of belief or how, quote unquote, practicing you both are. You need to be on a similar level for everything to work, smoothly and quite well together, or you need to be at least hoping to grow together and you have the same ideas about where you're going in terms of your faith. The next topic that you might expect to discuss during a premarital counselling session is the topic of illness. This is a question that some people just overlook and they never ask. You've never asked your spouse if they have any major or even minor illnesses that they are experiencing or going through, or the history, their medical record histories. You've never asked any question like that. And something like that can be really important, because if your spouse has a certain type of illness, you want to have an idea of how much that is going to impact their lives. And it's a similar case for yourself. If you have a certain illness, it's only right that you relate to that and you tell your potential spouse, this is what I have. I'm going into my little psychology mode for a second now, but in psychology, we have something called informed consent. Informed consent is a consent that you give, an agreement that you give, having all the information that you need to have. Okay, so you made your decision based on all the information that was presented to you. And sometimes we hide things from people that we're going to get married to or we're hoping to marry because we're afraid that if we relate these things to them, then we might lose them. And so we hide the things and we wait until after marriage to then say to them, oh, well, this is the case. We have to fear Allah, because it's unfair, especially if you have a major illness, to hide that from your spouse and then expect them to carry the burden, right, of whatever effect that might have, to carry that burden within that marriage. That means at the time when they agreed to marry you, they didn't know that you had the illness, but you knew that you had the illness. But you robbed them of the chance of making an informed consent. So it's very important, be honest and trust in Allah, that whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen for you will be willing to accept you the way you are. They'll be willing to help you improve, but at least they can accept you the way you are. So don't hide major things such as major illnesses from someone that you are planning to get married to. And likewise, you make sure that you ask your spouse if they have any major illnesses that you need to know about. The third topic that you might expect to discuss during a premarital counselling session is the issue of responsibilities and roles, okay? And what the expectations are in regards to that. What I mean is, who's going to play what role? Is the man expecting you as the woman to stay at home and look after the children? Is he willing to work hard to provide for you as a family? Is he expecting you to work through pregnancy and also contribute towards the family's upkeep? And by the way, I have to say here, in Islam, a woman doesn't have to spend a single penny on her family. The entire financial responsibility lays on the man. Just want to put that out there, okay? So even if you have a wife that's a millionaire, it really doesn't matter. It's still your responsibility, something Allah is going to ask you as the man about. So that's just a little side disclaimer there to get my sisters excited. But nonetheless, the truth is sometimes a lot of our men are struggling financially, and if you have the means and you want to help for the sake of Allah, then that is an option that you have and that you can offer to your spouse and say, I am willing to help you in this way and that way, so that the family can function well. But that is a discussion that needs to be had, and it needs to be very clear. For a lot of people, sometimes this has been the breaking point, okay? So they've met someone they really like, they're getting on, everything's working so well, until they bring up the topic of, I'm assuming that you're okay with me working, right? And then the man turns around and says, no, I don't want my wife to work. I want her to stay at home and not do anything, just take care of the kids, and I'll be the one to do all the work. And then she's like, but I want to work. And then he's like, I don't want my wife to work. And again, that's where the clashes come in. So if you can discuss issues like that before you get married, then again, you can make an informed consent on whether or not you are compatible with this particular individual. Maybe you can come to some sort of an agreement. But then again, that agreement will be made before marriage. So you're not waiting to get married, and then once you're married, he's expecting you to stay home. And you're like, well, I wasn't expecting it. I thought you was okay with me working. No, we're not. This is marriage, okay? We're trying to make this a lifelong, successful relationship. So we're going to discuss things and we're going to make informed consent before we enter into marriage. We're not waiting to enter the marriage and then start fighting about stuff, okay? So roles and responsibilities need to be discussed. It needs to be made clear. You both need to be happy with the role and the responsibility that each and every single one of you is going to contribute towards the relationship. So that is another area that you should expect to discuss during premarital counselling, or another area that you can just take from this video and discuss it with your spouse if you haven't already. The next point is the current financial situation of both individuals entering into the marriage. Finances can be a very strange topic to talk about. It can feel a bit weird, like, I don't want to come across as a gold digger. So it's kind of weird bringing up the topic of money. But listen, like I said before, this is a lifelong decision. You need to grow up, okay? This is marriage. This ain't dating. You need to just grow up, put your big girl panties on, okay? And discuss these major topics. And I'm referring to girls because I mostly have sisters on my channel. But same for the men as well, put your big boy pants on and discuss this. It's very, very important to know where you stand financially. You need to know that this individual that you're about to marry, are they in any debt? Because if they are in debt, of course, it's going to affect your life as well. If one person is coming in with no debt and the other person is coming in with a whole bunch of debt, how are you going to manage that debt and pay it together? Is it expected that the couples are going to pay that debt together? Or is it like, no, it's her debt, so she's going to pay it, or is his debt, so he's going to pay it? But nonetheless, it's something that needs to be discussed. And it's not something to, be afraid of or get scared about. If someone is open and honest enough to tell you the truth about their current situation, respect that, okay? Especially with the whole coronavirus situation, this 2020, it's been a tough year. So, give people a break. They might be struggling financially. It doesn't mean that, that's the position that they're going to be in forever. Things, inshallah, are going to improve. You also need to have a good understanding of areas, for example, such as, are we going to have a joint account, or are we just happy you paying a certain kind of bill, I'm paying a certain kind of bill, and we can have our separate accounts? How are you going to manage finances together as a couple and together as a family? That is very, very important topic to discuss before you get married. And the next very important topic area that you need to have an understanding of before entering into marriage is conflict resolution. Conflict resolution is how you resolve the problems and the arguments between the two of you as a couple. it's very important to have this discussion. And within this discussion, what you're going to be discussing is, when I am upset, this is how I behave and this is how I react. And you allow your spouse to tell you how they behave and they react when they are upset. And together, you try to find a way to manage your conflict. And you may also make certain agreements about how you're going to manage the conflicts between the two of you. So I'll give you an example. For example, let's say a man and a woman. Let's say the man has some anger issues. And when he gets angry, he tends to be quite verbal. And he might shout a lot and so on and so forth. Whereas the lady, when she gets angry, she might just want to express herself. Like, she just wants to get her point across and she wants the man to understand her. But he's always on rage. So he's never really hearing her. And so you have this battle that's always happening between the two of them. If they discuss during premarital counselling, this is how I am, this is how I am, the idea needs to be that, okay, knowing that this is how I am, for example, the lady, how can I manage it so that the problem doesn't get bigger? Okay, what is my goal? For example, for the woman, the goal for her might be that she's trying to express herself to the other individual and she wants to be heard, right? Her thing is she wants to be heard. His thing is, I'm really upset right now and this is how I feel like expressing my anger. Is she going to be heard by shouting at someone who is in the red zone? Okay? No, she's not going to be heard. So now her ideas and ways of managing her conflict is going to be, okay, when we are both upset about something, even if you are shouting at me, I'm going to try to practice some self-control and I'm not going to respond to you in that moment. Because even if I respond to you in that moment, you're not going to hear me because you're in your red zone right now. So maybe I will just keep quiet and let it slide, or I will remove myself from the situation. And then once things are calm, I'll come back and I'll explain to you and I'll try to get myself heard then. And at that point, I'm far more likely to be heard. And his thing might be, okay, if I start shouting and screaming at you, just tell me you need a break. Or maybe I will also walk out and remove myself from the situation. But we both agree that we will revisit the problem when we are calmer and we will talk about it and try to find a resolution. So that is an example of conflict management. And a good marriage counselor should be able to help you guys to identify ways to manage your conflict. Another area of managing conflict would also be having certain agreements. For example, the two couples will have an agreement that we're going to choose a particular person or maybe two people who are going to be our support system. So if we are struggling with something within the marriage and we're not able to resolve it together, normally couples always want to keep their issues between themselves and they don't want anyone to know. But I'm telling you, it's very beneficial to have someone that you both respect, that you're going to choose and say, if we ever have issues that we're not able to resolve between us, we will go and speak to this particular individual whom we have both decided and agreed on before we entered into our marriage. What that does is it helps you to choose someone that you know is wise, will advise you well, someone that means well for the both of you, and someone who will also consider the deen and has a little bit of knowledge of the deen as well. But it also helps to avoid fighting, in terms of sometimes what happens between couples is that someone gets really upset and they go and talk to someone else outside of the marriage. But it was never agreed between the two couples. So the other individual, they feel violated. They feel like you went and snitched on me, basically. You went and exposed me to everyone by telling other people what I've done. And they have a right, in a sense, to get upset because it was never something that you both agreed to do. Whereas if you'd already chosen a particular someone, neither of you can get angry if one of you goes to that someone and tells them what's happening, because you both already agreed that this particular individual is going to be the individual who we speak to if we are ever having an issue that we cannot resolve between ourselves. So conflict resolution is very, very important. It needs and requires both individuals to be honest with themselves about how they manage certain things. And it's something very good to talk about before you enter into marriage. Again, this shouldn't scare you because the bottom line is nobody is perfect. Okay? Sometimes we're in marriages and we're always thinking the grass is greener on the other side, and sometimes you get to the other side and it's not greener. No one is perfect. Everyone is going to have their issues. You know, there's never going to be that woman who will be able to take all of your crap and never say or do anything. Everyone has their limits. So it's all about when we reach our limits and it's getting too much, how do we manage so we can calm down, discuss and resolve the issues between us? Because the truth is, issues will come up. You will argue with your beloved one day. You will get into a fight maybe one day, not physical, but maybe some verbal exchanges and so on and so forth. And it's good to discuss how you're going to manage that. So that is the other thing to be discussed. The next topic to be discussed is expectations of future plans and goals. You want to know if your future plans and goals matches with the future plans and goals of your spouse, or that at least you can both compromise. Some people's plans might be that they want to relocate, and you need to know if that is in their 5-year, 10-year or retirement plan. And then you need to think about, am I okay with relocating to a different country? So topics like this need to be discussed. So discuss future plans and goals, and there you'll be able to identify whether or not you are compatible with this particular individual. Because if they have their mind set on relocating within the next year or two to a completely whole different place, and that's not where you want to be, and all your plans is in the country that you're living in, again, already a clash. Don't wait until you get married and then say, oh my God, he's forcing me. Now I don't have a choice. I'm having to move to another country. I don't want to go. And now it's a problem. Discuss it before you say I do. Okay? Next few things to talk about, I know majority of people normally speak about anyways, but I just wanted to mention it, are issues such as, how many children you want to have, when are you hoping to have children? Are you hoping to have children soon? Do you want to take a little bit of time before you start having kids? So on and so forth. How is your finances going to change when you start having children? Does the woman want to further her career? Is she ready to start having babies just yet? Does the man want to further his career? Is he ready to have babies just yet? So issues like that also need to be discussed between the two couples who are planning to get married. Other areas, especially as it relates to us Muslims, would be issues such as, are you someone who is planning to have more than one wife for the Muslim man? That's a question that needs to be asked. And to be honest, I know most of you sisters, that's probably your first question. I already know, but it's something to ask, and you need to know what the man's ideas and perspectives are on that, because some women, they're not willing to handle that. So you need to know straight away if that is in, that's in his mind. If he's open to marry more than one wife, you need to know that before you say I do, girl. Okay, because it's important for you to know that. So make sure you've discussed areas like that. The next very important topic to discuss, because again, this can definitely affect the couple, is living arrangements. How are you planning to live? The girl needs to know if she's going to be living with her in-laws, or if you are going to get an apartment with just you and her, and it's going to be the two of you alone. You need to discuss living arrangements, and you both need to be okay with the living arrangements that, will be provided. Because again, you both need to be comfortable, okay? Some people live with their in-laws and they get on fine with their in-laws and they're happy living there for some time being. Sometimes it might be, as I know some cultures are, that the woman will come and live with her in-laws and she's expected to pretty much live there for the rest of her life. They're never really going to move out. And if a man is saying to you, we're gonna live at home and then I'll see if I can convince my dad to let me move out, girl, you need to know that there's a possibility that you're going to be living in that in-laws house for the rest of your life. You might not be moving out, because if your husband needs the permission of his father to leave his father's home, chances are that his dad doesn't want him leaving the house. Okay, so sometimes people might not tell you things directly, but you also need to be able to read between the lines and make a decision. If that is okay with you, alhamdulillah. If it's not okay with you, you need to speak up, you need to say it, and you both need to resolve the issue. Next topic to talk about is learning each other's love languages, which is the fun part about getting married, you know, learning your partner's love language, how they like to receive love, because the way we give love isn't the way we like to receive love necessarily. So people have different ways that they like to give and receive love. And I think it's something fun to discuss and something, keep it clean now, okay? But it's something important to just bring up so that you know how to show your partner love. Because at the end of the day, that's going to keep your marriage alive. That's going to keep both of you happy. So learn about what love languages are and how to express your partner's love language to them. And let them know what your love language is so that they can also express it to you once you are both married. Next, we have social life. How are you expecting your social life to be once you are married? Are you expecting to still continue with your friendships of opposite genders? If you do have friends of opposite genders, how are you going to manage that? For example, your husband's friends, when they come around, if they are male, what's the expectation? You know, are you expected to sit with them, chat with them and all of that? Or is it kind of a thing of, okay, you can say hi and all that, but like give us our little space, you know, whenever my friends come over, you know, that can be an issue. Are you okay with your husband having female friends and vice versa? Is your husband okay with you having male friends and then visiting you and all that issue? Okay, you need to discuss that, discuss your social life and let your partner know what your social life is currently. And if that's something that's going to continue after marriage, let them know, and they will let you also know if they are comfortable with that. And if they're not comfortable with that, again, that's something to be discussed and maybe a nice medium can be reached. Finally, for this video for now, I would say discussing issues such as looking after parents in old age if both your parents are still alive, if that is going to be a possibility. I'm saying that because I know that in certain cultures, the children are expected to look after their parents in old age. So God forbid that mum or dad, one of them should pass away and the other one just can't stay by herself anymore or by himself anymore. Is your spouse okay with your whoever, you know, whichever parent is left behind in old age? Are they okay with them coming to stay with you and you guys taking care of that partner, that parent? So that's something that needs to be discussed. In fact, that just reminded me that I forgot to say that we also need to discuss the topic of family coming to stay over. I'm telling you guys, like the list can go on and on and on when it comes to issues that you can talk about. But it might seem like a very long list of things to discuss, but trust me, you're only doing yourself a favor by discussing these things. Sometimes when it comes to marriage, we get carried away with the excitement of, oh my God, you know, I'm so in love, which, you know, personally, I think it's infatuation at the beginning. But, you know, you're so in love, you can't wait to be married to your spouse, so on and so forth. And, you know, you're getting all the butterfly feelings. You can't wait for your wedding day. You get all excited about all these things and you forget about the reality of actually being married and the fact that your life is actually about to change and there's a lot of compromise that's about to start happening. So it's really great to bring up these topics, discuss it, but also be very mature about it. This is a topic for another day, but just because your body's physically ready for you to get married, it doesn't mean you're mentally ready for marriage. Marriage takes a lot of wisdom. So anyway, that's a topic for another day. So those were some of the areas that I wanted to discuss and share with you guys so that, like I said earlier on, you can discuss it with your spouse to be, or when you do attend, if you do attend a premarital counselling session, if your counsellor doesn't happen to come up with any of these things, you can kind of bring it up. Or if you're choosing not to attend a premarital counselling session, just take these topics, go and discuss it with your spouse, whether you're married now or you're not yet. If there is anything here that you've not yet discussed with your spouse, discuss it with them and have a good understanding between the two of you so that inshallah you can both identify if you are compatible with one another so that you can have a very successful marriage. So as you guys can see there is so much to discuss. So I hope this video has been beneficial to you guys. I hope you have taken notes, as I told you to take notes at the beginning. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for everyone who is looking to get married, and all of those who are in marriages. May Allah bless your marriages, and may Allah make it a means of peace and tranquility for you. May Allah place mawadda and rahmah between the hearts of the husband and the wives. And may Allah help us to have successful marriages. So guys, that is it. If you need any more help and support with regards to any of the topic that I've spoken about today, and you want to be coached in the area of premarital counselling, you can find me over on my website, which I will leave linked in the description box down below. And that is it for today's video. Jazakallah here for watching. I am going to sip the rest of my ginger tea. Alhamdulillah. If you have enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and share it with any brother or sister whom you believe will benefit from the contents of today's video. And inshallah ta'ala, I will see you guys in my next one. Assalamualaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.